Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here today with Karen Hendrickson. And Karen is a coach, end-of-life coach, and Karen finds herself guiding and coaching others in life, death, and all the messiness in between. Whenever you are stuck in life or facing difficult and uncomfortable challenges, Karen knows how to walk the journey with you, guiding and supporting you to create clarity, find opportunities, take action, regain ownership, focus, and control in your life, leading you to a meaningful, rewarding journey where you live, love fully every day. So, Karen, welcome to the show, and there's a really big story behind a lot of what you do, as well as far as the coaching, especially with life and life coaching. Into life coaching is about helping that person blossom for their family as they leave, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Michael, actually, for having me today. What's brought me to where I am is really because I've, throughout my life, and now at almost 58 years of age, I've learned how to become good friends with discomfort and uncertainty throughout my own life. So starting at a really young age of 17, when my oldest brother died unexpectedly in a tragic fire. And then, a few years later, young mom with a husband, a second child. My daughter was born with disabilities and a lot of uncertainty. That soon led to divorce, and I've also experienced job loss, right? So there's been a lot of events and difficult times that have occurred in my life. And so with that, I've had to figure out for myself in a lot of ways, how do you move forward? So, and then I can combine that with death experiences that I've seen with friends and family members. So I've seen family members and friends die to car accidents, through suicide, murder, and then, of course, agedness and terminal illness as well, right? Mm-hmm. So life gives us a balance of things, right? Good and challenging. And so how do we survive through those? And even right now, right? My husband right now is, living with a life-limiting lung disease. And of course, in these times of COVID-19 has really had an impact for us. But it's about how do you accept that and find ways to still be able to move forward and see the challenges as gifts, and so that you can survive and thrive through life's difficulties.
Yeah. So, you have a few tips to help us guide us through that, don't you?
Absolutely, I do. Number one is oftentimes when, things don't go to plan for us in life, our first instinct is to move to a place of anger and lack of acceptance. Why me, right? How could this happen to me? And really, my number one tip is really about finding ways to embrace the struggle. And so with embracing it, what I mean is accepting it and owning it, and then knowing that life comes with struggle. So society as a whole puts us in this place of expecting and getting on the treadmill of the pursuit of happiness, mm-hmm. believing that we can achieve a life where there's joy without struggle, right? Where there is no pain, no suffering, if you will, right? And the reality is that life gifts us with difficulties and challenges. And so when we can just simply accept that the challenge or the struggle is in front of us, then we can change perspective and find ways to move forward.
Right.
Right?
you said that challenge could be a gift, right?
Yes, yes,
So.
absolutely, right? So, for me, so in part of embracing the struggle, it's about adjusting your camera lens to what I call wide angle. And so focusing on what that struggle is, for sure, from a factual basis, right? And really recognizing what you do actually have control over. So there's a lot of things that occur around us in life, things that happen. I like to say they don't happen to us, they just happen. And that we don't have control over, but there's a lot that we can have control over with respect to how we move forward with those struggles, right? So change the wide angle lens, not from what I can't do and what's being taken away from me from a loss perspective, but what can I do with the situation as it's appearing to me today? And that then creates opportunity for change, right? And moving forward.
So essentially, what you with that wide angle lens, you're able to see what else is around you, so that it gives you a totally different perspective on the situation, right?
Right, exactly, right. And so, and it might mean that you have to reach out for support and assistance, right, to make some change, depending on what the struggle or the situation is. So, if I can even apply that in relation to when my daughter was born, and at 2 months being told that, she had been in hospital, and my husband and I at the time were told that she definitely had she was definitely visually impaired. So she is blind. There was some cognitive neurological disorder there, never given a diagnosis, but essentially after 2 weeks in hospital, we were sent home with this beautiful baby girl, and essentially said, take her home and love her, and don't really expect anything of her. And had I taken that as the lens to just look at the situation, right, as opposed to, because that sort of left us with a sense that we could do nothing, right, about the situation, and that it was happening to us. And the truth was there was a lot that we could do. And so by changing the lens, wide angle, we could then take a look at what could we do to support this little beautiful baby girl to achieve whatever potential was meant for her, right? Yeah. And, I can have...
Oops.
Years, we were left with an expectation that they wouldn't happen. So she graduated high school with a dogwood diploma, with kids of her own age. She's gone to Douglas College and taken education, and she's an early childhood education supporter now, right? So there are challenges in her life and challenges in our life as parents supporting her. But by changing the lens, it allowed us to allow her to be all that she was meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a beautiful way of looking at things. Otherwise you I also see it this way. If you follow the way the doctors had given you, what would you have done to her greatness? Instead of supporting her greatness, you may have stunted it, right? So,
potentially, right?
Yeah.
It could have become really limiting in her opportunity for potential if we had kept the narrow focus on that circumstance and felt that we didn't have any control or couldn't take control over anything, right? There's always things that we can do to create some positive out of whatever experience sits in front of us.
Yeah.
Another piece that I offer up to my clients is let's work on owning and acknowledging all of your feelings around the struggle. So not to wallow in the grief and sadness, because with every struggle and difficulty, it's always about loss, because we're losing something, right? Whatever that might be. And so it's not to wallow in the grief and sadness, but to acknowledge it for what it is. When we don't acknowledge the feelings we're having around circumstances, again, we become limited in our capacity to recognize opportunity to move forward and where we can, right? So it's about empowering you to shift the focus. So you own the feelings. You say, yeah, you know what? I am really sad and heartbroken about this. Absolutely, I am. But and then taking steps to move through those feelings versus oftentimes what can happen is people will stuff the feelings, ignore the feelings, try to avoid the feelings. Oftentimes this can lead to, addictive habits that can, to cause to create a numbness so that you're not feeling the emotion, right? And in my work as a coach and an end-of-life doula and a death supporter, the emotions are important, and we have to acknowledge those, and then we also have to be able to release them. But we can't release them from ourselves physiologically unless we're actually ready to own them, which means allowing ourselves to feel and experience and then let go. So it's a critical component for me from the perspective of the work that I do in relation to how you help people move forward. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another piece that I do is, another tip is around rewriting the story, right? So rewriting the story, changing it from this happened to me, which is sort of a place of being a victim, to this happened, right? Mm-hmm. So, again, I could go back to the situation with my brother for my family, right? We could have said this happened to us, right? Or, my parents could say, this happened to me, right? How could this have happened to me? How could I have lost my son? How could I have, right? And I could say, how could I have lost my brother? How could that have happened? And it turns, what it does is it has a little bit of a flavor of a victim versus it just being an event that happened in life, right? Not diminishing the event, but it's an event that happened in life. It wasn't that somebody or some higher being said, this is going to happen to you, Karen, right? But when we can rewrite the story, then again we have opportunity, right? So I love Byron Katie. Byron Katie has a piece of work that is really instrumental, and I bring this into some of my work with clients as well too. But two key questions, that I often will ask is the story you're writing true? Is it the truth? Mm-hmm. And then the second question is, how do you know it to absolutely be true? And so, we write a story about our lives and our experiences every single day, right? And oftentimes, what we write for ourselves isn't necessarily the whole truth. And so when we're willing to allow our vulnerability to open up and actually question and ask ourselves, is that the truth, right? Mm-hmm. Is it really true? And what tells me that that's the absolute, right? And then it allows you opportunity to rewrite the story. So I could say, my story could be, poor me, my brother died when I was 17. Poor me, my daughter was born with disabilities. Poor me, our family ended up, separated and in divorce. Poor me, I lost a job, right? Mm-hmm. Poor me, family members killed in accidents. Poor me, right? And that mindset isn't going to change the events that happened. But if I change my mindset around the events, then it's not a burden that's weighing 500 pounds on my back any longer. It's about, that happened, and that's really sad, and I have grief and loss along those things. But what is it creating opportunity for, right? Where can I take action? What can I do? So what can I do to change the story for myself? And it can be as simple as, I lost my brother at 17. That is so sad. But I was so fortunate to have 17 years of my life experience with him. Right. Do you see?
Yeah.
Right. So there's a and so how do we move toward where we can see the blessing in the pain? My personal belief is there's always blessing in pain. There's always gift in pain. We just have to discover it. And we have to be open to recognizing our life has changed, yes. But there's other good things waiting out there for us if we choose to step into them. Mm-hmm. Make sense for you?
Yeah, that does actually make sense. Because in the past couple years, I've lost a number of really close friends, and and yeah, sometimes I want to sit down, I want to cry about it, and then something triggers in my brain and says, "But do you remember when we both had that really cool laugh over something, and like how great that was?" And then I feel that instead. And it becomes a really cool feeling when I know that I can. It's like, okay, it's just so awesome to have had that person be part of me for so long, and now I can keep them as part of me for a much longer time when I remember them.
Right.
So.
And even, Michael, just that example, right, goes back to, the other point that I talked about around owning and acknowledging all your feelings around the struggle, right? So, in those types of situations with those kinds of losses, as an example, throughout our lives, we will have occasions where we have some deep sadness around the people who have left us. That will occur always, right? And so in owning and acknowledging the feelings, I think it's quite okay to say, right now, today, I'm feeling sad about the fact that, my brother Ernie's no longer here. And just being okay with that. I can feel that today because that's right now, right? And in an hour or tomorrow or whatever the case may be, I'm going to feel quite different, possibly, right? And the thing with death and dying around and losing our loved ones is that, in reality, we lose them from the physical world, but our relationship with them continues. So I know for me, certainly, when I look at it in relation to my brother Ernie, right, he's not here physically with me and hasn't been now for 40 years, right? But, he's still with me. I still hear him saying things. He still makes me laugh, right, when I think about those memories. So the relationship has changed physically, but he's still with me. And so if I can recognize that there's still some gift in that, it makes it a little bit easier, right?
Yeah.
It just sort of moves things forward for sure, right? Or helps you to move things forward, right?
Yeah.
Another piece that I think is really, really important as well is trying to find and build a practice of gratitude. So what I mean by that is, so I will often encourage my clients to set up a daily gratitude practice, right? So maybe whether it's the beginning or the end of every day, right? Just sort of acknowledging what you're grateful for today, because no matter how dark things may feel, there are some light beams that come through in a day. Sometimes they might be very minor and simple, right? So like for some individuals, dependent on circumstances, maybe it's, I'm grateful that today I actually got to put my socks on by myself, or in this day of COVID, right, I'm grateful for the connection that I had today with my son through Zoom. Simple things, right? But when we start to focus on what we have versus what we don't have, we move away from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance, and it happens naturally and organically within us when we establish a practice to regularly sit down and move ourselves to say, what was good today?
Yeah.
Right? So, and I'll use experience in this. So with my husband's illness, so my husband, Paul, has IPF, which is idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, and he actually is waiting on a double lung transplant. But, for us, a good day is when we haven't had extensive coughing episodes that can go on for, an hour, 2 hours at a time that are really extremely debilitating for him. A good day can be when we've made it through a night's sleep without significant interruption as a result of breathing issues and coughing, right? They're simple things. The disease is big, but there's still a lot of good in what we experience every day, right? Or even just being grateful for the fact that, today was another day we got to have a breakfast together.
Yeah.
Right? And so be grateful for the day, right? There's a lot of challenging things that occur day to day with his illness, but where are the small nuggets of richness, right? That this challenge is helping us actually, his illness has actually moved us to really focus on the minute and simple things of life to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, right? So, my personal belief is that for all of us, life and our purpose is about not just joy, but it's about recognizing that life comes with struggles and challenges and difficulties. And a lot of things happen and occur outside of ourselves that just occur and create challenge for us, right?
Yeah.
Our purpose in life as human beings, I believe, is to learn and find ways to see the richness and the joy that can come from those challenges. It's not diminishing the challenges or the events that can happen for us. It's not saying that they're unimportant or they aren't significant or they don't have a massive, significant impact in the way of loss and change for us. It's not saying they're just minor. What it's saying is, yeah, they're big and they can put you right on top of your head for long periods of time at times as well too, right?
Right.
But within every day that shows up for us, there are some gifts that can be found. And so when we can learn and recognize by using a few simple tools or a few simple practices, it enables us to be able to move forward whole, right? Yeah. With our loss and our grief, but in a way that allows us to carry hope and optimism for our future. Yeah, whatever that might look like. It might change the view of hope. So often, like with my end-of-life clients that I work with, right? We move from, initially what happens with family in those circumstances is they're hanging on to this hope that their loved ones, say their parent as an example, right? They're hanging on to this hope that their parent isn't going to die. Mm-hmm. And eventually that becomes a pretty false hope because the parent is dying, right? Whether it's, old age or illness or what have you, but the parent is dying. And so the beauty in the experience is saying, yeah, you know what? Here's our reality. Mom is dying. And so how do we make the most of whatever time is left and get the richness of whatever time is left and change our hope to a hope that Mom will have a peaceful transition and passing, that it won't be too difficult for her, a hope that we'll be able to spend as much time together focusing on the things that are enjoyable for all of us as opposed to just the illness, and a hope that after Mom dies, we're all sad, yeah, but we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? And so, the fundamental piece on this always for me is that at the end of the day, if we can apply these tips that I talk about and move forward, that we can actually just ultimately have a trust in ourselves that no matter what happens, we will find our way and we will be okay. But it takes effort and it takes a change in focus, right? And adjusting your lens and being open to what you have control over and what you can do versus what you can't do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that our society, they want us to focus on. That struggle just shouldn't have been there. So and your way of changing that lens makes all these things seem so much more beautiful that they actually happened in our life. It doesn't make things less sad that you lost a loved one, but it makes you grateful that you had that person in your life to begin with.
Yeah, and whether we're talking about death and dying, or we're talking about divorce, right? So the breakup of marriage, the breakup of family, that's a huge significant loss as well, right?
Yeah.
Or even cases where somebody's been in a motor vehicle accident and has ended up with a significant change, right, in their physical capability and their livelihood and all of those things, right? So the struggles are real, right? So the approach that I use is we're not going to diminish the struggle. We're not going to play down the impact of the struggle. We're going to say, yeah, the struggle's here, but we're going to embrace it and say, okay, yeah, it is. And sometimes it's really quite, pardon me, but frickin' awful what can happen, right? In life. For sure. But when we release this false belief that life is all about happiness every day and that's what we should be striving for, when we release that false belief, then we can get more comfortable in finding ways to be comfortable with the things
Right.
that do occur, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think struggle is real for everybody, right? We all have it. It comes in varying different magnitudes, comes at different times in our lives. Each of us responds to it differently, but we all have some opportunity and control to make it as good, make the bad as good as it can be, if that makes sense for you, if you want to use that kind of language, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If we
Yeah.
wanted to go that way, I guess
Yeah.
the would you say that the control that we do actually have over some of these events that happen, because some of them are single moments in time,
Mm-hmm.
is our viewpoint and how we look at them, so that it may change our lives, but it changes our lives so that something really cool happens at any end, and we can change that, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, right. And maybe in some cases, depending on the situation, maybe it's not a matter of that you can turn it into something that's really cool and amazing in the end. But what you can do is you can shift perspective and you can shift your actions so that you can accept the struggle or the loss that has occurred, whatever that is in your life, right? And you can bring a more positive mindset to what's in front of you or ahead of you and what you can create for yourself in the future, despite the event that occurred.
Yeah. So,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most challenging things we often do for ourselves in life is we give up our control, and we don't actually acknowledge the personal power that we do have with respect to how we live our life and how we respond to what life presents to us, right? So, we sort of give it over, right? And don't acknowledge that, hey, you know what? No matter the circumstance, there are a number of things that I do have control over, that I can manage, that I can take action on, that will be beneficial for me, that will help me to move forward, right? So,
yeah.
As opposed to, and again, it comes down to all of this, what I've talked about, right? So number one, shifting from this happened to me to this happened, number one, right? It happened, yeah. And it's had a significant negative impact or loss, created a significant loss in my life and how my life was.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't taken away my power, because I still have the power and the ability to recognize what I can do and move forward with that, right?
Right.
And maybe we can't do that alone. Like, this is another thing I think oftentimes we're not always good at as human beings. Human beings, for whatever reason, in a lot of cases, aren't really very good at asking for help and support, whatever that is, right?
Right.
Right. So. Sometimes we have a tendency to bring in our negative beliefs from our life experiences, and we question our own capabilities and all of those things, and we don't want to be a burden to other people, and we don't want all these stories we write. So let's rewrite the story. Let's take one step at a time, one line at a time, and rewrite the story in a way that feeds us, right, and enables us versus breaks us down and disables us.
Right.
Yeah.
So, reaching out for help. How do we reach out and get help from you?
From me?
Yeah.
Well, I have a website. My website is KarenHendrickson.ca. I'm also on Facebook. I can be contacted by email at Karen@ttjourney.com, which is TT is for takethejourney.com. Take the Journey is an element of, I believe, what we're all doing. From the moment we take our first breath to the moment we take our last, we're traveling the journey of our life. And, there's a roadmap, and we get to create that roadmap. And there will be, roadblocks and road washouts along the way. But, we can create some amazing stuff for ourselves despite all of that, right? So KarenHendrickson.ca, my website, email Karen@ttjourney.com. You'll find my Facebook page as well, Take the Journey with Karen, and Instagram as well. And, phone number 604-614-6696. Give me a call, drop me a line. I love to hear from people. Yeah. And, I'm really passionate about sharing my experiences, not my experiences specifically from these things happen to me, but my experiences from the perspective of having to learn and overcome myself, right? Some very difficult challenges in my life. And the greatest gift for me in the work that I do is watching and seeing people light up and come alive once they realize they've got choice and option, simply by embracing, adjusting the lens, owning how they feel at any point in time, right? Rewriting their story, and then moving from a place of scarcity and a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of gratitude and abundance. Because when we look for the good, we will see it, right? When we focus on that's more challenging or we view as negative, when that's our focus, then we will feel that more. Mm-hmm. And, we only get one go around on this earth, so we should make it as joyful as we can for ourselves, despite the struggle.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. And thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so proud to be here and honored for you to invite me, so thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, if you go to KarenHendrickson.ca, and there's a Connect Me page and lots of other information about Karen right there. And if you're having a struggle, you need some help, give her a call. So, thank you again, Karen.
Thank you so much, Michael. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thank you for listening to us today. Please find and click on the subscribe button so you can get continued updates from us. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.